members of the media, online viewers, radio listeners via St. Martin Gov Radio 107.9 FM, and respective radio stations island-wide. I'm Rolika Roach, and welcome to the live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, January 22nd, 2020. At this time, I invite the Minister of Justice, the Honorable Egbert Duran, to address you.
Good morning, members of the media, Honorable Prime Minister, colleague ministers, and everyone tuned in through the various means. On Wednesday last week, January the 16th, I participated in the YVO, which is the Justice Four-Party meetings in Curacao. As many of you know that the four justice ministers meet twice a year, so from St. Martin, Aruba, Curacao, and also the Netherlands. And we have different discussions in relations to strengthening the cooperation on all levels in the justice field between all the countries. The purpose of these meetings is to come to an effective joint coordinated approach to common matters issues concerning the criminal justice chain of the four countries. Topics on the YVO agenda were all concerned justice matters falling under the portfolios of the various ministers, including organized crime prevention, cross-border law enforcement, border control, the prison system, data sharing and protection, and information technology. Justice Ministers Girigori of Curacao being the host of the YVO this time, Mr. Ferdinand Grapperhuis of the Netherlands, and Dean Baker of Aruba, and I discussed annual plans in the budget for the Joint Court of Justice and the Prosecutor's Services and the common or shared justice entities, for example, the Kingdom Detectives. Given the fact that the draft budget 2020 has not been approved as yet, I could not make certain commitments and agree to certain things in anticipation of us adapting the budget. We were also given an update on valuable work and progress of the several work groups within the YVO on specific justice issues like improving the strengthening of our borders and or improving personal data protection legislation. The latter is especially important to fully effective share police and other data between the countries. In this regard, it is essential that St. Martin set up a data protection commission. This must be an independent and knowledgeable commission which has to supervise the compliance of government and the private sector with regards to personal data protection laws. New initiatives like restorative justice and more meaningful daytime activities for prisoners like e-learning were discussed and will be worked on to elaborate more from Aruba's side, and we would also adapt it in the follow-up meeting. Pertaining to information technology, it's good to note that St. Martin, again, is fully associated with the SBIR and is expected that Aruba will shortly follow suit. This IT organization will serve, of course, and be financed by all four countries within the kingdom, as always intended. It is good to hear that SBIR has accepted and appointed the St. Martin representative in its supervisory board, thus enabling St. Martin, together with Curacao and the Netherlands, soon also Aruba, as I mentioned, to co-decide on deployments of the SBIR resources in its activities and the long-term vision for law enforcement. It's also good to note, I had a meeting with the representatives from the SBIR, and they requested that we send individuals to partake in a course that has to do with cybercrime. So not only prevention, but also when you get an attack, how to deal with it. We all know that we, as a government, have been attacked by several cyber attacks. So I found this very important, especially for the Ministry of Justice, which I will be sending 4 representatives from 4 various departments within the justice chain to participate in this training. And when they return, they will enlighten the rest, their other colleagues within the justice chain as well. This will take place next month. I can also inform you that because it has been agreed in the YVO that the Council of Law Enforcement will evaluate several agreements between Aruba, Curacao, St. Martin, and Holland that regulate the use of each other's detention capacity. Of course, we all know we have that issue here right now. Before and after the YVO, I also had some courtesy bilaterals with the Justice Minister Girigori, Grapperhuis, Baker, and also the Minister of Kingdom Relations, Mr. Knops. I can also say that all the ministers were very satisfied with the course of the JVO meeting. These biannual meetings to jointly discuss and seek for solutions in various justice issues and challenges we have are very common in the justice chain, which will lead with all players, and we also help the weakest link. So we fill in where the others are lacking. And that's the main purpose of all these meetings. We are all struggling with limited financial means, material, and human capacity within the islands. To strengthen this chain on a national level and with the sister islands, it is important that we stand united because, as I stated there as well, united we stand and divided we fall. For now, that will be all for my opening remarks. I look forward to any questions that the media might have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister Duran, for your opening remarks. At this time, I invite the Minister of Finance and Acting Minister of Education, Culture, Youth and Sport, the Honorable Artwell Edion, to address you.
Good morning, colleague ministers. Good morning to the viewing and listening audience. This morning, I will go a little off script because I had a little time to reflect back before I came to this press briefing. And there's a popular show on social media right now that I haven't personally watched as yet, but I believe it's called A Fall from Grace. And this weekend, Saturday actually, I attended the funeral from the late Miss Mavis Brooks Solomon. And I would like to say that she was the exact opposite of a fall from grace because of the great testimonies that were given on that day. And I would like to once again give my last tribute to her, pay my respects, and say much strength to her family. And you can be honored for the life that she lived. The ministers that are here still, we still have a job to do, no matter the outcome. And I would like to say to the incoming ministers, there's an honorable task ahead where you may be able to look back also one day and say that you also contributed and had an impactful legacy as the one as the late Miss Mavis Brooks Solomon. Again, much strength to her family, and you may be proud of the life that she lived. In the capacity of Minister of Finance, this week I met with Mr. Dennis Richardson of the Supervisory Board of the Central Bank, as well as the board. During these meetings, I was updated on the developments with the emphasis on the solvency of the Hero Bank and the proposals of the increase for the license fee in Curaçao. To be clear, the 1% license fee, which is charged by commercial banks to clients who conduct foreign exchange, is collected by St. Martin and Curaçao and is deposited directly into our treasury of the respective countries. Due to the fact that St. Martin will not be following suit with Curaçao, Curaçao may very well be looking for alternative solutions. In the future, I would suggest that St. Martin is consulted first when new solutions are found. That way, we could have input and avoid the unnecessary speculation that we see now in the media. During these meetings, I've also discussed with the central bank that I would like, as a country, to improve our relationships and not see them as a separate entity anymore, but as an extension of government where we lean on them for advice and project support. Stating this, I have requested the central bank to support me in my mission and taking St. Martin forward in the new age in terms of blockchain and digital currency. And I have started the process of having a summit, a blockchain and digital currency and banking summit to be held hopefully at the end of the year. In the capacity of Minister of Education, Culture, Youth and Sports, the Ministry of Education, Culture, Youth and Sports bid Mrs. Davis farewell after over 3 decades of service. She spent 36 years in education and the last 8 as the head of the Division of Public Education. She began her career on August 11th, 1983, and left the Division of Education on December 31st, 2019. The Ministry of Education, Culture, Youth and Sports wishes Mrs. Davis all the best with her new position as Director of the Jubilee Library. When I came into government, I realized that, of course not everywhere, but we saw, personally I saw that there were civil servants that were demoralized, not motivated. And one of my goals were in the ministry to find ways to have employees motivated again. And one of the ways that I've decided to start is in the Department of Innovation, where I will be implementing something that I coined Innovation Fridays. I have taken the steps to implement Innovation Fridays. This will allow employees in the Department of Innovation time on Friday to work on projects of their liking. This working model that is taken from Google is called 20% time and has generated great ideas such as Gmail and Google News. Employees have the most thorough insight into their own needs and the needs of their consumers. Given the freedom to work on an idea they believe in is one of the easiest ways to fill the gaps in an organization. Another benefit is the encouragement of teamwork and leadership skills, as the staff normally require the expertise of their fellow employees to realize the project. While working on the project, they can simultaneously work on a report on their progress. At the end of the quarter, they are to deliver the report, which will be considered in their evaluation. By allowing employees to focus on and create something they believe in would benefit the company or our organization, we are boosting their creativity, making sure that they are heard and also feel considered. And further to that, I had an initial meeting with the department head. Yesterday, I had a meeting with some of the staff. And the idea is that next week, they will start to come up with an idea, a project that they can work on in the field of education, culture, youth, and sport. That idea will be then taken, and they will have to look to see at the feasibility of it, how it can be financed. And after a quarter, so we'll do it for 3 months, every Friday, we will look at all the ideas and see which one will be most feasible to implement within the organization. What I expect to see out of this is see morale increase, because now you have a Friday, you get to work on your own project. We have less micromanaging, because as a minister, there's no way I believe that I'm able to micromanage every single project in every single department, but I believe that employees should know what's best, and they should be motivated to work on these items. My hope is that it's not looked the evaluation is not looked as a punishment, but a reporting standard that we could use after this to look at other departments and see which other department we could also implement this standard. Of course, it cannot be applied in every single department, but any department that requires innovation, I believe is something that we can do. So I'm hoping that the innovation department sets the standard for the future. And that'll be all for today, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Minister Edion, for your opening remarks. At this time, I invite the Prime Minister and Minister of General Affairs, the Honorable Sylveria Jacobs, to address you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Roth. Good morning to you. Good morning to my colleague ministers. Good morning to members of the media and staff of the different cabinets here present, as well as those following this broadcast via whichever medium. It is with honor that I address you this morning for opening statements. I would like to segue onto what was stated by the Honorable Minister Erion in thanking the people of St. Martin, including His Excellency the Governor Eugene Holliday, all the members of the higher councils of state, members of parliament, of course my colleague ministers, and all other civil servants and dignitaries who together showed honor for Mrs. Mavis Brooks Salmon, the late Mrs. Mavis Brooks Salmon, who was laid to rest last Saturday. On behalf of her family, her colleagues, and friends, which I count myself a part of, I would like to say that indeed we are appreciative of the honor that was bestowed upon her by this government and by the people who all spoke during the wake, as well as the homegoing service held at the Catholic Church. St. Martin has indeed lost an icon in service, in professionality, in integrity, in strength, someone who has actually paved the way for many of us here today and has paid it forward actually in the way we see how people function, and has set an example for many of us to live up to. Many of us today are privileged to be able to use this platform, having been elected or appointed to serve the people of St. Martin. And I hope and pray that we all take it very, very seriously, as the impact we have will also be a lasting one, whether good or bad. And may we all live long enough to make a positive impact and hear the same types of accolades that were bestowed upon Mrs. Mavis Brooks Salmon last Saturday. And I'm sure we will continue to hear even more as the days go on. Her legacy will live on. This I can guarantee. Moving into the updates from the Ministry of General Affairs. As Minister of General Affairs, I was graced with a meeting with the Integrity Chamber of St. Martin. The newly established Integrity Chamber of St. Martin held an introductory meeting with me on Thursday, January 16th. Present were the 3 current members, Mrs. Rian Vogels, President or Chairperson, Mr. Raphael Bosman, Member, and Mr. Hans Lodder, Member. The 2 latter members were appointed by St. Martin, while Ms. Vogels was appointed jointly between the Netherlands and St. Martin. The director of the Secretariat, which has been established since last year, of the Integrity Chamber is a homegrown local young lady called Miss Sharna Pompier. I am extremely pleased and proud to have been sitting in meetings with Miss Pompier over the past couple of weeks since swearing in as Minister of General Affairs. And I must say that it is good to see our young people. We often talk about young people in St. Martin, professionals not being able to find work. While having worked in previous departments here in St. Martin, she has now moved over to be basically the top administrator, the Secretary General for the Integrity Chamber, and is the one that actually set up the office in the absence of the members being formally appointed. So while Mr. Bosman and Mr. Lodder have been appointed by St. Martin since the beginning of 2019, Mrs. Vogels, a former senior judge with years of judicial background as well as mediation, has been appointed as its first president in December of 2019 via Kingdom Decree upon binding recommendations of the 2 St. Martin members, and has recently assumed office as of January 2020. Discussed in the meeting were, among others, the structure of the Integrity Chamber along with its core tasks, which include advising on integrity matters, both solicited and unsolicited, conducting investigations into suspected integrity violations, and to continuously create awareness about integrity in the community. I mean, we can talk about what our civil servants do or what our elected or appointed members do within St. Martin society. But as we all know, our elected as well as appointed and our civil service is a reflection of the community on the whole. So if we want to see improvements, we actually have to improve across the board. So this body is not only there to police or to give advice. We are actually hoping that we can raise the integrity level if necessary, because I think awareness of what is integrity is something that was started back in 2012-13 and then dropped. There was an integrity bureau right here in the government of St. Martin, and based on what I have done in terms of research, that will receive the necessary attention as well, because that is also necessary internally as government to be able to effectively deal with any integrity breaches, suspected integrity breaches, etc., and how they will be handled. So by this, I can remind the persons who were in that time appointed by department to be the person of contact. They will be contacted again, and we will do everything within our power to improve our internal integrity system, awareness, understanding by our civil service and the general public, using, of course, the Department of Communications, and of course, the Integrity Chamber of St. Martin will be doing their part from their outside office to bring awareness as well. So it has the cooperation of the Council of Ministers, along with any further assistance for the finalization of it, and the training and the reassignment of the so-called, we call them in Dutch, vertrouwenspersonen or for the ministries will take place as soon as possible. Any extra information or the implementation of the Integrity Chamber was the result, just to remind the people of St. Martin, an agreement that was made in 2015, I believe, between the governments of St. Martin and the Netherlands to establish an independent body. There was quite a dispute at the time as to how that chamber should look. And at this point, now we've reached to the point where, yes, St. Martin does have 2 members, which we have appointed independently, and the 3rd member, being the chair, was jointly appointed by the Netherlands and St. Martin. The agreement had to come from those members. So this is needed, or was needed, seen as needed back then, to improve and enhance integrity and ultimately confidence in government and in the country overall. So definitely it will not hurt and can only improve the way we deal with persons. You will probably see then a decrease in complaints going to the Ombudsman. You will see a decrease in several situations. And as Minister mentioned just now, moving forward, we hope to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of government on the whole. So finding ways to build morale and see us all seeing each and every one as civil servants, seeing themselves as an important cog in the wheel of the machinery of government, will be tantamount to making the sustainable changes that we would like to see as government and, of course, a society of St. Martin. In another update, I've also received a visit from the Lieutenant General, Commander of the Royal Netherlands Marechaussee, Mr. Hans Leitens. He, as well as his regional commander, visited my office with policy advisors together with Minister of Justice, Mr. Egbert Duran, and the Secretary General of the Justice Ministry, Mr. Russell. Together with government, we were given a breakdown of the role that the Marechaussee plays within the region, and in particular, their role on St. Martin, which mainly involves border control and combating human trafficking and human smuggling. The Marechaussee reiterated that their members work under the command of the police corps, so the KPSM. They are not an entity unto themselves. The Commander-in-Chief of the Police Force of St. Martin also schedules them in, ensures that there are both local as well as the Marechaussee on each team, and is totally in charge of that. So they are provided and budgeted for by the Netherlands government. However, they take their orders from the KPSM and are there as a source of assistance for us. It allows for our local police force to be trained in the interim, and this is a cooperation that will continue until we have reached to that stage where we have sufficient police officers properly trained, and allowing also for others who are at one level to be able to upgrade to the next level, because we would like to see our local officers on all levels of the police chain. Also, they are providing assistance to immigration and customs, and trainings have also taken place in this regard, because that's not their official capacity that they carry out. There are, I believe, I don't want to say a wrong number, but the number that is here is consistent. They spend from 1 to 3 years on the island, and they are going through also, we were assured, some type of acculturation process before coming to St. Martin. We did air our concerns that maybe more acculturation training should occur once they get to the island, and it should remain consistent that the cultural differences are understood between the Society of St. Martin and the one that they are used to. We would like to thank them for their continued support of the justice chain as we grow and become even more self-sufficient in the years to come. The NRPB, the National Recovery Program Bureau, met with myself as well as a delegation, Mr. Claret Connor, and the core project managers, as well as the legal advisor. On Monday, updated myself as Prime Minister on projects that are being financed by the St. Martin Trust Fund. As the NRPB falls under my responsibility as Minister of General Affairs, the NRPB provides me with regular reports on a monthly basis. By the 15th of every month, we get an updated report. And after receiving that report, I felt it necessary to have some discussions with them, especially seeing some of the concerns that had come forth upon my discussion with the EOC. A little more about that in the next segment. During Monday's meeting, we particularly focused on the support the trust fund is giving to emergency services, such as the fire department and the police stations. One of the updates also mentioned the additional equipment for the fire department is actually on its way at this moment. It is expected that fire suits, which were financed by the trust fund, should arrive at any day, as well as safety shoes in the coming weeks. Through the Emergency Projects 1, ERP1, the trust fund will continue to provide much needed support to the fire department, including specialized equipment, new fire trucks and ambulances, and a necessary extension of the Emergency Operating Center, which will be at the fire department currently. So that will be an expansion of the building. Currently, the fire department is undergoing its repairs, and it was actually the expansion and the other repairs that were funded through the trust fund were actually supposed to start this month as well, but in order to not have that overlap, they're allowing the fire department, SOG, which is in charge to carry out its planned repairs, and then the project will continue with what has been funded via the trust fund. The police stations in Phillipsburg and Simpson Bay have also been updated, or is currently working on phase 2 of the repair program. Phase 1 included the roof and other emergency repairs, as well as the installation of windows and doors and hurricane shutters. The work in phase 2 includes additional upgrades and repairs to improve the working conditions of our police force, and that will follow. So 1 is completed and 2 is being worked on. For the general public, for more information on what is actually taking place with the trust fund via the NRPB, I encourage you to visit the NRPB's website, www.nrpbsxm.org. That is www.nrpbsxm.org, and follow the NRPB on Facebook. As I mentioned previously, which is the reason why I actually called in the NRPB for a meeting, the Emergency Operations Center, EOC, last week held a meeting upon my request. The National Disaster Coordinator, Mr. Clive Richardson, and all stakeholders of the ESF, Emergency Support Functions, we have 1 through 10 of the EOC, to discuss the current state of affairs and to address several concerns in regards to disaster management plans and tsunami evacuation plans. I was able to receive several updates on the status of the disaster management plans already in place from the various stakeholders. Of course, I was a bit alarmed that there was a lack of cohesion in some of these plans. So based on that, the Department of Communications, which forms part of the ESF as well, and falls within the Ministry of General Affairs, has already established a very good relationship with the community councils and with public education, so the schools, and has plans already to produce content to be able to educate the community and schools in particular concerning tsunami evacuations. So while the EOC feels that our preparedness for hurricanes is at a top level in terms of awareness by the public, in terms of what we need in place, and though we understand and know that certain things are lacking, the awareness of the public is there, and once the warnings, etc., and watches are issued, people know the steps they need to take in that. But where tsunamis and earthquakes are concerned, we do not believe that we are there yet, and so thereby, with all the stakeholders, including DCOM, the general public will see an increased awareness program, and I encourage each and every one to take the time to visit DCOM's website as well, Facebook page, and the government's website to stay updated. In concluding with the EOC, I insisted and we established a protocol that we would meet once per month. Before this, The trend had been to start meeting 2 or 3 months prior to the hurricane season. And since we are in a region, the Caribbean, which is prone to not just hurricanes, but every disaster known to man, I believe that we should stay at a level of readiness. And therefore, once per month, we will be meeting. And after said meeting, I will be updating the public, or you will see whether it's an increase in one area or the other in the awareness programs, so that we are aware of what we need to do as a people when nature strikes. We are aiming to strengthen our disaster strategy collectively, so cohesively, and all stakeholders will continue to work during now and the next meeting on their tsunami evacuation plans. And in the interim, research will also be carried out to determine better equip government with the expertise needed on tsunamis. So we can look forward to trainings, etc. We have several professionals now that we've made contact with, especially since the SEDEMA conference last December, and we will be making use of these to get our local ESFs and the relevant stakeholders better prepared. The EOC will be meeting again in the coming weeks, and I'll be receiving updates on these developments. As a result of all of this information, I would like to encourage the general public, the community of St. Martin, to download government's Disaster Prep St. Martin app. It is available on Google Play Store. The disaster app has been designed to provide pertinent information on disaster preparedness. Let me repeat that. The disaster app has been designed to provide pertinent, important information on disaster preparedness. It will give regular updates and alerts. I think alerts are something that we can understand, and on the emergencies that are taking place on the island. And then if you go and you look for yourself as well, an educated population is one that also seeks its own information, know what to do, especially those of you in low-lying and flood-prone areas such as the Simpson Bay, Kupakoy area and the Phillipsburg area where we are right now. After downloading the app, go to the Disasters and Risks tab and then select Tsunami, where you will find information on what steps you can take before a tsunami, during a tsunami, and after a tsunami. That could save your life and the lives of your family and friends. It is always best to be prepared. While listening to my colleague, I remembered something that wasn't initially in my notes, but something that was I must say I was very proud to enter as Minister of General Affairs and be updated by one of my departments, the Department of BAC, Interior and Kingdom Relations, that an advice was coming. And when I saw this advice, it related to, you would think, what would this ministry or this department have to do with that? But seeing that they saw the attention that recycling, reusing, and reducing our waste was getting at Parliament level, with legislation being discussed, etc., they have taken an initiative to come with a project aimed at minimizing the use of one-time plastic and styrofoam during the carnival season. And this is something that has had my personal attention. I've mentioned it on several occasions, that the amount of waste that is produced after a big event, and we have the Heineken Regatta, we have Carnival, we have several festivals in the festival village, but other places as well. And once it's over and you see that debris, it really hurts my heart. And along the roads leading to the cars, etc. So I believe we need to change our ways of doing things as a people, our culture, even in advance of the lobbying change, and therefore applaud Angelique Gums and the others at BAC for coming with this project. They have met over the past few months, so this is before I got here, with several stakeholders, and have devised an advice which government will be supporting recyclables that are less hazardous to, or throwaway materials that are less hazardous to our environment, so cardboard and the like. And boot holders, SCDF is cooperating that the boot holders would utilize these instead of plastic. I applaud that. I didn't see that in the advice, so I asked them to add recycle bins as well for the bottles, because you can't avoid that several of the beverages that are sold, even though the vendors don't take them away, the boot holders have a big a large amount of bottles. And so recycle bins will be placed within the village, and the booth holders are encouraged to separate at the source bottles from their other waste, and we will see then a reduction of what goes to our landfill. Several contracted garbage haulers are already starting to beef up and the separation themselves. We know that the Meadowlands has theirs at the roundabout on the way out of Bush Road that is utilized for the general public. We used to have bins on the pond field, and I've understood from the Minister of Rami that we are working on getting those in every district as well. I'm sure he'll update you on that when he has more information. But I would just like to let the general public know that it starts with each and every one of us. If you do not toss garbage out of your car, or if you take the time to fold your cardboard and put it away, we are already doing a lot in terms of safeguarding our environment, minimizing what goes to the landfill, and therefore our general health. So I would like to, through this medium, encourage citizens, vendors, food wholesalers, retailers, hotels, and restaurants to be mindful of the way you are disposing of your waste in advance of the changes to the law. If we have already changed our behavior, the law will only give us the means by which to punish those who break the law. But by then, we'd have already changed our behavior, especially at supermarkets. You see a large quantity of boxes that can be flattened and taken to be recycled. So I encourage you to do this in the interest of the general health of the people of St. Martin. And with this, I will await further questions.
Thank you, Prime Minister Jacobs, for your opening remarks. If you've just joined us, you are watching the live Council of Ministers press briefing. The Minister of Public Housing, Spatial Planning, Environment and Infrastructure, the Honorable Christopher Wavert, is present, however, will not be making any opening statements, but is available for any questions the media may have. We now move to the question and answer session. Nikisha Boseman of the Daily Herald, you have the floor.
Good morning to the ministers and good morning to all persons listening and viewing. My first question is for Minister Duran. How much did the government spend in its treasury to pay the justice workers, and when did they get paid?
Good morning. Thank you for your question, Ms. Boseman. It was approximately 1.9 million guilders. It started, I think it was the 10th of January, the payout started, but it varied per bank when the employees actually got their funds.
Thank you, Minister Duran. Lyndon Brown of BCN TV, you have the floor.
Good morning to the people of St. Martin and to the minister today. Minister, this platform is very serious. Thousands and hundreds of people, as we speak, are listening to us. So we have a lot of followers. But question to Minister Arian. Minister, the people of St. Martin are very concerned about the crisis with the central bank. I just want you to just broaden the conversation. Where would it hurt St. Martin? Is St. Martin committed to bail out the central bank? Make it clear to the people of St. Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. First, I'd like to say that we're not bailing out the central bank. It's the issue in Curaçao is with the Hero Bank. And like I stated before, the proposal from Curaçao was to increase the license fee by 1%, which is, again, is a proposal. And St. Martin will not be participating with this proposal, so the country of Curaçao might have to now find an alternative solution. And that's all I could say pertaining to that situation as of now.
Thank you, Minister Edion. We now move on to the second round of questions. Nikisha, you have the floor.
My question again is for Minister Duran, my second question. Following up on the previous question, can you tell me how many of the justice workers were paid and what are the next steps for government to solve their issues permanently?
Their issues are vary, so that's a pretty wide question. I don't know if you could specify which issues you're talking about. You're talking about the function book and those things?
Yes.
Okay. The list was about approximately 250, roughly. I'm not sure exactly how much individuals about that. And in regards to solving their issues permanently, 2 weeks ago, I gave a directive to the Secretary General to reach out to all department heads and get a updated version as to where we are right now in regards to the various function books. I'm expecting a response from him by this Friday. Once we have that in terms of where we are at, the second follow-up will be a plan of approach, which will all have a timeline to it, because what I notice is that we have meetings, they're fruitful meetings, good discussions, but then nobody really does the follow-up. And by appointing people and putting people accountable to actually do the follow-up, then is where you see results. In particular, a prime example is with this payout. It's been going on for so long, and it was a discussion for months, but until you actually put people in charge of it and do the follow-up and set a deadline, you will not see results. So it worked in this instance with the first part of the retroactive payment, which is a small part in the whole pie. And as I stated, I'm looking forward to getting a response from him this week in terms of where we are at, and then put together a plan of approach. So for all departments, not only the police, but the prison, the MOT, every department within the Ministry of Justice.
Thank you, Minister Duran. Lyndon of BCN TV, you have the floor.
Question to the Minister of Education again. Minister, last week he was absent. And according to conversation, it was for good reason. The school in Dutch Quarter. Tell us, is that matter settled?
Thank you for your question again, Mr. Brown. Yes, last week I was not at the press briefing. I was not absent. I was not at the press briefing due to the fact that I went to see the concerns of the school managers and teachers at MLK, Martin Luther King School, where they had concerns over mold. And we did a couple of things. I'll just go over briefly what we did. We assessed the situation. We also contacted VSA, the inspectors, for their report, which we haven't gotten as yet, because they did an assessment on the schools to assess if there was really mold and to what level and so forth. We also were told by professionals that it could also have been, the allergic reactions could have also been because of the ACs, which were not cleaned for at least 2 years. If you looked at the ACs, it was almost looked at like tar, how dark it was. We had a company that was willing to donate services to a few ACs. Later on, the school did ask them to come back again to do all 10 ACs. We also had the mold cleaned over the last weekend. So we had a company came in, they cleaned the mold. It was about an 8-hour process. Non-toxic also, a non-toxic solution. There was also a situation with the sewage where the backup of sewage and the air in between was going back into the classrooms, which was also causing bad scents and possibly also mold. So we had that done also. We cleaned up all the sewage, pumped all the sewage out, and we also fixed 2 classrooms that had electrical problems. They didn't fully have electricity, and we fixed that problem also. So we tried as a ministry, tried our best given the circumstances. I would like to state this is something that I inherited, but I still take accountability for it. And once I'm in this position, it didn't start with me, but it will end with me. Currently, there are 3 to 4 classes that will be relocated while the rest remain in school, and the VSI inspector is supposed to come back this week, again for a second assessment, now that we have cleaned the classrooms and disinfected the mold.
Thank you, Minister Edion. We now move on to the third round of questions. Nikisha, you have the floor.
My third question is for Minister Jacobs. Can you provide an update on the status of the formation process, and specifically, what is the status of the meeting held with MP Emmanuel on signing the coalition agreement?
Thank you, Ms. Boseman. In terms of the formation process, I've been appointed as formateur late Thursday evening. I have met with the candidate ministers, the process to collect the information. I actually updated them as to the process that we have to go through together in terms of providing the necessary information. So we are at that part of the process. And at the end of the week, I hope to be able to have all the necessary information to present to the governor as per our agreement. And from there, we will move on with consultations if any information, some information cannot be given in a short period of time. So as more information is handed over, we will continue to consult and hopefully meet our deadline date as has been set in the formation assignment. I do believe it's achievable, as we will have several of our sitting ministers returning who have already been through this process 3.5 months ago. So that should not take as long as probably the initial screening, if you would like to call it that, took place in October last year. As it pertains to the situation with Member of Parliament Emmanuel, that is an internal matter of the National Alliance and bears no bearing on this press briefing, which is a government press briefing, and I'm always willing and able to answer anything related to the government of St. Martin in this setting. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister Jacobs. Lyndon Brown, you have the final question.
Final question to the most powerful minister, Minister Weaver. Minister, I'm going to use the word inherited from the Minister of Education. You have inherited a lot of things, the dump, the septic water on the streets of St. Martin, and the Dutch water project. Minister, what do you have to tell us of these three items?
Good morning to all present. Thank you for the question, Mr. Brown. Well, as you stated, it was inherited as well. But every day I come to work and I do the best I can do. We look at each situation, each issue which is there, such as the sewage, the landfill, and the Dutch quarter, and we see what the issues are, and then we see how we can tackle it to find solutions. Of course, certain things are easier than others, and it doesn't go overnight, but steps have been taken and will be continued to be taken so that solutions can be found for these situations that you speak of. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Weaver. Honorable Ministers of the Council, members of the media, radio listeners, and online viewers, this brings us to the end of the Live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, January 22nd, 2020. For rebroadcast, tune in at 7 p.m. on St. Martin Cable TV and via St. Martin Gov Radio 107.9 FM. For video on demand, log on to the official government's website at stmartingov.org. On behalf of the Department of Communication, I'm Relika Roach and wishing you a pleasant day further.